The small, flickering light of the oil lamp illuminated the humble room, casting shadows on the walls as the storm outside began to wane. Kyousuke sat propped against a tattered pillow, his breaths shallow but steadier than they had been days before. Across the room, she worked diligently, her delicate hands wringing out a wet cloth to cool his fever. She had found him at his lowest, broken and bloodied on the forest floor. Without hesitation, she had dragged his barely conscious body back to her modest home, a sanctuary hidden from the chaos of the city. With her aging father's help, she nursed him through the worst of his wounds. Kyousuke stirred, his voice raspy as he broke the silence.
You saved me?
She glanced over her shoulder, offering a faint smile.
Someone had to. You've lost too much already.
The days passed, and Kyousuke regained his strength. One morning, as the first rays of sunlight peeked through the cracks in the wooden shutters, he sat up in bed, determination glinting in his eyes.
I can't just let this go,
he said, his voice heavy with resolve.
Ryota took everything from me. My empire, my reputation, he left me with nothing. I have to make him pay.
She turned from her work, her expression calm yet firm.
And what will that accomplish, Kyousuke? Revenge won't rebuild what you've lost.
It'll make him suffer like I did. Isn't that justice?
Kyousuke snapped, his fists clenching. She sighed, pulling a chair closer to his bedside.
You think breaking Ryota will fix the pieces of your life? Look at where vengeance got you the first time, lying in the dirt on the edge of death. You're better than this.
Kyousuke's jaw tightened, his gaze dropping to his hands, still scarred from his last fight.
So what? I just let him win? Let him keep everything I worked for?
No, you rise from the ashes. You rebuild, not for Ryota, but for yourself.
She leaned forward, her voice carrying a quiet strength.
You did it once, Kyousuke. You can do it again. And when you do, it'll hurt him more than any act of revenge ever could. Because while he wasted his life tearing you down, you'll be standing taller than ever.
Her words hung in the air, sinking deep into Kyousuke's heart. He opened his mouth to argue, but found himself hesitating. She was right. Ryota's victory was temporary. Kyousuke's resolve was eternal. A small, bitter laugh escaped him.
You're wiser than you look,
he admitted, glancing at her.
And you're stubborn,
she retorted, though a smile tugged at her lips. He leaned back, exhaling a breath he didn't know he was holding.
Fine, no more revenge, but I'll rebuild.
She stood, her gaze warm, yet unwavering.
Because forgiveness, Kyousuke, is the best revenge of all.
And as the morning light grew stronger, so did his resolve, kindled by her unwavering faith in him. The hall glittered with opulence, chandeliers casting a golden glow over the crowd of elite entrepreneurs and socialites. Laughter and polite chatter filled the air, but at the center of the gathering stood Kyousuke, calm and poised. His journey from ruin to redemption had been nothing short of remarkable. Starting from nothing once again, Kyousuke had poured his experience and determination into rebuilding his empire. The climb had been grueling, but his scars, both physical and emotional, were reminders of the lessons he had learned. He wasn't just wealthy again. He was wiser, stronger, and unpretentious in his confidence. As Kyousuke entertained a small group of investors, a familiar presence slid into the room. Ryota. The years had changed little about Ryota's appearance, but there was something hollow in his eyes, something desperate behind his practiced smile. He sauntered toward Kyousuke, his arrogance still intact, though cracks showed beneath the surface.
Well,
Ryota said, sidling up beside Kyousuke.
The phoenix rises again. Quite impressive, really.
Kyousuke turned slowly, his expression unreadable.
Ryota.
Ryota leaned in, his voice low enough for only Kyousuke to hear.
Tell me, Kyousuke, don't you feel the itch? The hunger for revenge? After everything I did to you?
Kyousuke's gaze didn't waver. His voice was steady, almost dismissive.
Why would I waste my time? Becoming like you would be the real loss.
The words hit like a slap. For a moment, Ryota's composure faltered, his face twisting with fury. But Kyousuke simply turned back to his guests, as if Ryota were nothing more than a passing breeze. The night moved on, but that moment lingered, gnawing at Ryota's pride. Years passed, and the cracks in Ryota's empire widened. His vast wealth, once a symbol of triumph, became a noose around his neck. His reputation, built on betrayal, deceit, and broken contracts, spread like wildfire through the business world. No one wanted to work with a man who couldn't be trusted. One by one, partnerships dissolved. Deals fell through. Even his allies abandoned him, unwilling to risk their own credibility. In the end, Ryota's empire collapsed under the weight of its own deception. Meanwhile, Kyousuke thrived. He had built something stronger, something that no betrayal could destroy. His success wasn't measured by wealth alone, but by the respect and loyalty he inspired. One quiet evening, as Kyousuke overlooked the city from his room, an old news report caught his eye. It detailed the downfall of Ryota, the man who had once stolen everything from him. Kyousuke's lips curved into a faint smile, not of triumph, but of understanding. He closed the report and leaned back in his chair, his thoughts drifting to the words she had spoken all those years ago.
Forgiveness, Kyousuke, is the best revenge of all.
And as the city lights shimmered, Kyousuke knew he had already won. The evening air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of jasmine as Kyousuke stepped into the modest home. His heart thudded against his chest, not from fear, but from the gravity of the moment. He had faced business wars, betrayals, and the crushing weight of loss. But standing before Aya's father felt like his greatest challenge yet. Aya's father, an aging yet dignified man with silver streaks in his hair, sat in the living room, his gaze steady as Kyousuke approached. The room was humble but warm, filled with artifacts of a life well lived. An old clock ticking softly in the background. Kyousuke bowed deeply, his voice unwavering but respectful.
Sir, I've come to ask for your blessing. I wish to marry Aya.
For a moment, silence hung in the air, broken only by the distant chirping of crickets. Aya's father studied him, his gaze penetrating, as if searching for something beyond the surface.
My daughter
The old man began, his voice calm but deliberate.
is no ordinary woman. She is a gem carved by the trials of life and polished by her unwavering kindness. If I entrust her to you, Kyousuke, you must promise to cherish her, always. Keep her close to your heart through storms and sunlight alike.
Kyousuke nodded, his throat tightening with emotion.
I will, sir. She has been my strength in ways I never imagined. I promise to protect her, to honor her, and to never take her love for granted.
The old man's expression softened.
Words are easy, Kyousuke, but love is a lifetime of action. Remember that.
With a faint smile, Aya's father extended his hand, and Kyousuke took it, sealing the unspoken bond between them. The wedding day arrived in a bloom of color and light. Roses lined the pathway to the small hall, their fragrance mingling with the crisp morning air. Guests gathered, their laughter and chatter creating a symphony of joy, but Kyousuke could only see her. Aya, dressed in a gown of ivory lace, walked toward him, her steps light yet purposeful. Her beauty was radiant, but it was her smile, a smile that had seen him through his darkest days, that took his breath away. As she reached him, Kyousuke whispered,
You look like a dream.
Aya smiled back, her voice just as soft.
And you look like the man I've always believed in.
The ceremony unfolded like a storybook, each vow spoken with conviction, each promise sealing their hearts together. Petals rained down as they walked hand in hand from the hall, their future ahead of them, unknown, but bright. As they stood beneath the arch of roses, Aya's father approached them, his eyes moist with pride.
Kyousuke, remember what I said. She is your gem. Guard her well.
Kyousuke nodded, his grip on Aya's hand tightening.
I will. Always.
And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the world seemed to pause for them. Two souls united, ready to face the world together. The warm glow of the evening sun bathed the Kyousuke household in gold. Laughter echoed from the garden where Aya played with their little daughter, her giggles ringing like bells. Kyousuke stood by the window, watching the scene with a soft smile. Beside him stood his eldest son, now in his early teens, on the cusp of stepping into the world with questions brimming in his young eyes.
Father,
The boy began, his voice steady but curious.
you've built everything twice, from nothing. How did you do it?
Kyousuke turned to face his son, the light from the setting sun casting long shadows in the room. He motioned for the boy to sit at the low table, where the remnants of the day's work lay, papers, sketches, and ledgers filled with dreams for the future. For a moment, Kyousuke didn't speak. His hand lingered on one of the papers, his fingers tracing the lines absent-mindedly. When he finally spoke, his tone was calm, but carried the weight of years of hard-earned wisdom.
There was a time,
Kyousuke said,
when I believed my intellect was my greatest weapon. I thought my mind, sharp, calculating, always 10 steps ahead, would shield me from failure, from betrayal, from loss, and for a while it seemed to work.
The boy leaned forward, hanging on his father's words.
But then,
Kyousuke continued,
everything fell apart. No amount of strategy or planning could stop the storm that Ryota unleashed on me. I was left with nothing. No empire, no wealth, not even my pride. What saved me wasn't my intellect. It was.
He paused, glancing out the window where Aya held their daughter in her arms, spinning her in a circle.
It was my heart.
Heart?
The boy asked, his brow furrowing in confusion. Kyousuke nodded.
Your mother taught me something my intellect never could. She taught me that endurance, the strength to rebuild, to fight, to hope, comes not from the mind, but from the heart. A heart uncorrupted by pride, unburdened by hatred. A heart that forgives, even when it's easier to hold on to anger.
The boy's eyes widened.
But isn't pride important? Isn't it what drives us to succeed?
Kyousuke smiled faintly.
Pride is a double-edged sword. It drove me to build an empire, but it also blinded me to the cracks forming beneath my feet. When I let go of pride, when I chose forgiveness and humility, I found a strength I never knew I had. The strength to rise again, not for revenge, but for a better purpose. Our family.
The boy looked thoughtful, his young mind processing the weight of his father's words.
Remember this.
Kyousuke said, placing a hand on his son's shoulder.
The battles that truly matter aren't won with intellect alone. They're won with a heart that endures, forgives, and remains unshaken by power and wealth. That's the lesson I want you to carry.
As the sun dipped below the horizon, Kyousuke and his son sat in silence, the wisdom of a lifetime settling into the boy's heart like seeds waiting to grow.